Welcome to the Operations Science Podcast, where the art and science of operational excellence come to life through captivating stories of triumph, challenge, and transformation from the front lines of industry. Our distinguished guests, from manufacturing pioneers and medical device innovators to aerospace visionaries, diagnostic lab leaders, and major capital project leaders, unveil the hidden patterns and powerful insights that drive exceptional results in the complex world of operations. Join us on this journey of discovery as we explore the brilliant minds behind the systems that make our world work and uncover the leadership secrets that could revolutionize your approach to operations forever. Here is your host, Ed Pound.
Welcome to the Operations Science Podcast, where we explore the science of working better through our guests' experiences and insights. Ever get in a brand new car and admire the extreme precision of the fit of the sheet metal panels of the car to create its aerodynamic and stylish shape, while at the same time providing protection for passengers? Yeah, probably not. Most people just think, wow, this is a great looking new car. Ever think about the people who manufacture those cars and panels with such precision and style? Our guest today heads one of the most critical production facilities in the Ford Motor Company. Yes, that Ford, the company whose innovation and manufacturing prowess has been reshaping the world of mobility for over a century. He's helped lead transformation after transformation across a number of companies, revitalizing cultures, reshaping operations, and redefining performance. Over the past 3 decades, my guest has built a career at the intersection of continuous improvement and real-world results. From working with complex supply chains to driving lean execution in high-volume manufacturing environments, he's seen the shop floor from just about every angle. Whether it's stamping metal with precision or stamping out inefficiency, he's been at the forefront of transformation, all the while focused on developing teams with clarity and purpose so they can do great things. Welcome to the podcast, Brian Kendig. Hey, Brian, how are you?
Doing great. Good to be here today, Ed.
Good. Thanks for participating. Let's jump right into it. You've been involved in a number of transformation efforts throughout your career. And so to start out with, from your perspective, what are some of the key lessons you've learned about what works and what doesn't work when leading transformation in operations?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think at times manufacturing can be exciting. At times manufacturing can be very humbling, right? What I've learned over the years is, what we do isn't very special if you're doing it for a minute or two. But if you're going to take, years or decades to be a immortal organization, it takes quite a bit, right? And if you're going to transform, it really is a bit of a recipe. There's know-how, there's a science to it that comes down to how are you managing your culture? What are you doing with your systems and processes? And then how are you driving innovation and improvement? Those are all kinds of key to successes. And unfortunately, a lot of companies kind of struggle with how do I build a better mousetrap? And they get a little infatuated, the new bright and shiny, and they forget some of their traditions and things that they historically did. And so I think that's where it gets a little bit dicey on, where do you turn? Is it the next management by objective or management by exception? Are you going to do carrot and stick? What works and what doesn't to be able to get there?
Right. So when you start in a new position, what's your first 90 days like? What are you thinking?
I think really understanding the organization, the people, a lot of the things I learned along the ways around the culture. Do people understand what's in it for them? Did the leaders really work to develop what does good look like? I think there's a lot of organizations grapple with from their team standpoint, does everybody want to do a good job or not want to do a good job? And from my standpoint, 100% of people want to do a good job, but the leaders have to say, what is a good job to begin with? And then once you do that, do you tell people what it is? Do you put a stamp on it at the end of the day? Here's a good job, here's a bad day. And then how do you react? Where we have this kind of paradoxical thing on, well, if you didn't have a good day, does that mean that you're bad and you need to be held accountable, or is that a learning opportunity? For me, it's just, take those willful and reckless issues off the table, go drive accountability with that, but then create an army of problem solvers that are interested in learning how to go do something different and kind of march towards what does Mother Nature want you to go do. That's that cultural analysis is my step one.
Okay. All right. So that's interesting. I been doing a little background research. I looked, there was a YouTube clip from the local television news show about buffalo stamping, and it was back, I don't know, 2018 or something like that. But it was the thing that struck me was the workers that they interviewed talked about, well, we want this job because it's a good job. We're making good products, but we can support our families and we can spend time with our families. And you want to make sure that you're doing the work that you're supposed to be doing, but you definitely have to keep in mind that people element, because you can't work somebody 90 hours a week for 5 weeks in a row and expect to get the kind of results that you want.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I've always gravitated to companies that have that long lineage heritage. I think there's the people element that gets lost somewhere along the way in smaller organizations, or the kind of fly by night organizations, where you can connect back to, at some point in time, this amazing thing was made in someone's garage, and people loved what they did, and they did it because they wanted to be the best at it. And the company, flourished and growed. And then somewhere along the way, it became, about doing it for someone else, to someone else's expectations, and status quo kind of creeps in, which never really belonged there, right? It's supposed to be for the love of the job. And unfortunately, I think that's where manufacturing gets a little bit of a bad rap. It's a tough environment to be, and you have to have fire and the ability to get through it. Where, my mission, my endeavor is, I want everywhere I be to be someplace where people love their job. They can't wait to get in and go tackle the challenges because it's fun and exciting.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I saw a survey, actually, it was just this morning, and it said something, because they're talking about manufacturing and its importance to the economy. And the survey said something like 78% of the people said that folks should be working in manufacturing, but only 25% of them said they wanted to work in manufacturing. So you're like, yeah, people realize it produces value. It's a really solid earning opportunity. But to your point, it's gotten this reputation of, just dirty, dangerous environments, which is so far away from where modern manufacturing is. How do we change that perception?
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, getting back to real planning and execution is this. Yeah, I think we live in a world that has a lot of rather arbitrary goals and expectations on, we got to make the month, we got to make the quarter, we got to make the year, and you push, and you get in this faster, stronger, longer conversation that has kind of nudged out, hey, we're going to be safer, it's going to be steadier, it's going to be smarter, and measure, did things go according to plan, or did they not? And how we come out and go create a better plan? And I'm with them. Me, we've known each other for a while. I'm an engineer, so I like getting the data, the details. And someone will invariably say, "Well, Brian, but the world doesn't work like it does on paper." And I agree. It never goes according to plan. But I also know that if it doesn't work on paper, it's not going to work at all.
Yeah, yeah, right. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah, we've got to get back to did we have a good plan so that we don't have the garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah. So along those lines, then, so as we mentioned, you spent a lot of time in transformation. In your view and your experience, what does it look like when a transformation is working, and what does it look like when it's not working?
Yeah, I think definitely when it's not working, you get a lot of these. My favorite is called watermelon metrics, where you design all your metrics, you're green, you're perfectly happy with status quo, nothing's changing, and you're worried about your future. Are you going to survive or not? But when it's working, you're pointed towards launch mode. How are you going to thrive? So your people are happier. They enjoy coming to work. Your finance teams are really happy with you because the systems and processes are delivering value. And then your improvement and innovation has kicked off in a way that your customers are excited about what's coming next. Uh, and that really is the winning atmosphere that you want to create. And it's going to take more than a minute, right? You can't. It does start with culture, so plan for that 3 to 5 year. If you've gotten stuck in that watermelon metric mode, sure is exciting when you get to the other end of the curve.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Actually, that was going to be my next question was how long you think it takes. So you think, 3 to 5 years is sort of a reasonable time frame to expect?
Yeah, and then, again, it kind of to me depends where you're at.
Yeah.
As many people are looking for a better mousetrap, I'd say every organization we've ever heard of has had this at their core at one point in time. They were at that organization that loved what they were doing. They couldn't wait to go do it better and deliver. So how far away did you get away from it, and how much do you have to pull that culture back is going to be unique for every organization. But that's the starting point. Once you can get past the culture and people are motivated and ready to go, you know, what does your plan look like compared to execution? If you've just been following trends for years, it might take you more than a minute to go back and create a good plan. And I've seen a lot of organizations that got so siloed, plan makes no sense, right? So you've got, salespeople promising these lead times. You got the finance people looking at what's your balance sheet and inventory require, and you got accounting saying, here's your productivity goals and targets and what you need to be doing to hit your budget. And you and I know that those are all related with Little's law, right? There's a science that says those things have to make sense and work together. But if you can balance those trade-offs, you can tack a year on to kind of go reverse those in culturally. But after you balance the trade-offs,
Yeah, yeah. And then there's the political environment, right? You have to have the support to allow you to do the things that need to be done that need to be done and for that to sink in. So in terms of that, when you're building these continuous improvement teams, so somebody Ford, I mean, there's a long history of continuous improvement, right? I mean, do you come in, you say, oh, we need to look at things differently, or do you feel like that you need to make changes, or what do you do with the continuous improvement efforts as part of this transformation that you're trying to affect?
yeah, I think for all continuous improvement, that there's a level of sense making, right? That just has to take place. A lot of organizations already know what to do. They already have it somewhere in their history. But the allowing people to ask why and feel like they've got a sense of purpose and understanding of why we're doing it versus continue on the status quo is the real secret. Again, my mission is I want an army of problem solvers, because that to me I think gets you past the we're all working for someone else. We're all working for the work life balance. To I love my job and I can't wait to doing it again tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah. So I presume you've got well, I know you have a lot of experience with lean, which can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. And I get criticized from time to time because people say you're too hard on lean. You're talking about this operation science, and you just are throwing lean out the window, which, by the way, is completely wrong. Our approach to operation science and lean is that operation science just strengthens lean because, as you say, you want an army of problem solvers. Have you seen what's your view on the lean effort as sort of an industry movement, and how do you tune those efforts when you come into an organization?
I am a lean zealot, I guess. I hate saying it like that, but I've definitely bought in hook, line, and sinker that I'm a lean guy. But for years, decades, I guess, I've seen this warring competition of lean versus Six Sigma versus ops versus theory constraints. And for me, I think it's just a maturity curve. I think they're all really the same thing. I think lean wins the race hands down, because I think there's a little bit of promise, and a lot of consultants have been out there talking about how simple and easy it is, just kind of go turn it on because the concepts are easy to explain, and the analogies of how I picked this up in a grocery store, implemented in a factory, one and done, kind of takes over. So I think it's really useful to start with lean because the philosophy is very clear, the tools are there, but when at some point in time you have to look under the hood, how are we actually going to do it? Because you can't walk out to the shop floor and say, "Hey, I have a Kanban, go." And so I think the science, which if you over like the Mondin textbooks and so forth, it's all there,
Yes, it is there.
right? So and Toyota will be glad to tell you, or any of the lean organizations, some of the work that they've done in the background's massive. And to me, all of that's operation science based. If you want to know truly how to do or the inner workings of doing it well, you have to do the operation science part. Otherwise, you're setting yourselves up for a lot of trial and error before you get that perfection. And then after you have operation science in place, then to me is where the Six Sigma comes into play, right? You have a plan, you know that you're executing it, you're doing your PDCA cycles, but what does Mother Nature say the limit is? How far can you take this? And carving out that variability to get to truly world class and beyond, I think is where it fits. So to me, it's a maturity model. You want to be a immortal organization, you gotta do all three.
Yeah. Oh, I like that term, an immortal organization. We don't have too many of those around, but Ford's in the running, so that's good. Yeah, so that is interesting. I mean, we see that all the time. It's this dueling consultants, basically. Exactly to your point, is it lean or theory constraints or Six Sigma? And that's where whatever it was, 25 years ago, Spearman and Hop kind of looked at this whole thing and said, "Wait a minute." There are laws of nature that are governing here, and it wasn't like they had discovered everything, although they did add, they actually and are continuing to add new stuff to the science of operations. But just this idea, I don't know how we got away from that. I think back in the 50s, industrial engineers were very big in companies, and then they came up with like total quality management, and then just in time, and then somebody wrote the machine that changed the world, and then boy, the consultants were off because the great appeal to it, to lean, is it's simple and people can understand it. And I'm just wondering how you've been able to incorporate sort of looking under the hood with the simple appealing part of, yeah, let's go reduce waste, because that people want to do that.
Yeah, I guess one thing that gets a little lost in the lean, and we're talking about kind of the warring consultants. I love all the different varieties of the house of lean that's out there, right? There's 200 different versions. Everybody wants to put their own spin on it, but there's a basic thing. If you go back to the original versions, it's stacked with a level of mastery, right? You want to learn the standard, and after you have kind of learning going on in the organization to be the standard, whether it's your plan for going or plan to stopping on that JIT and Jidoka, and then you want to continuously improve and make it better and satisfy the customer. And so that level of mastery, I think, is thoroughly engaged, ingrained in that culture. Where for me, I started my career in many Japanese organizations. A fundamental difference to me in those organizations, you have to be good. Lucky's not a thing. If your target is 80 JPH and you finish at 75, the reaction, whether it's US or Japanese organizations, identical, right? Tell me why you're off by 5 units JPH. But if you get an Japanese organization,
Right. Jobs per hour.
yeah, jobs per hour. You get a Japanese organization and you finished at 85, you don't get the same pat on the back.
Right. Right.
The explanation is, okay, well, what was wrong with your plan that you came up with 85 instead of 8? Or where did you not execute your safety or your quality standards like you're supposed to? You finished at 85. So there's a really big balance between that plan and execution. And how do you improve the plan to get a better execution and get better and better and better? That to me is a key difference that has kind of been in there. And so for me, I've always tackled that spirit of what does it take to master this? How do I really say that I'm good at what I do? I don't like the term expert, but I want to be good at what I do. And so I've always looked at what's next, where's the limit that takes us to it. And certainly operations science has helped far and away more with where's that limit, where can we go with the old, best case models and practical worst case models. We're really kind of tuned into where we're at versus where could we be.
Yeah, I mean that's the idea. Is it starts from first principles, right? It's not saying be like Toyota, or that might be great if you're in automotive assembly, but if you're in hospital services, some of the stuff might apply, some of it doesn't. And so understanding that relationship between variability and capacity and inventory and time, you can set it up for your own efforts and incorporate it into what your lean efforts you have ongoing already. You don't have to say, oh, now we're going to go do operation science. You don't even have to tell people that, right? You just go out there and just fine tune your efforts. So along those lines, you're dealing with variability a lot. How do you, where do you see variability in your processes, and how do you identify that and deal with it?
Yeah, yeah, it's a great question. I think, again, where a lot of companies go wrong and start kind of scratching their head on how I eliminate variability, how I eliminate complexity, is they bypass to me the first step of just balancing the organization, having a good plan. But after you've been able to balance those trade-offs and make sure that they fit in terms of I've got the right resources, I've got the right methods, I've got the right behaviors going on in the organization,
Yeah.
then you put the plan into place and you start watching the trends. You have to divide into the old special cause, common cause. And then for me, I get addicted to the common cause. What's driving it? Do the Pareto and start breaking it down.
Yeah. So along those lines, you've mentioned planning a number of times. What is the planning process in your organization? Are you having monthly S&OP, sales and operations, or SIOP, sales inventory operations planning? How does that work for you? Is there a cadence to it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, SIOP, of course, we have our weekly meetings leading up to the monthly SIOP report out. Organizationally, we have our strategic kickoff meetings and regular reviews and updates. I think the content of those is just having very real conversations about where you actually are, and not necessarily just the aspirational. We want to be here. It gets very real.
Yeah. 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 I'd like to fly. I wish I could fly. It's like, yeah, okay. That doesn't mean you can do it. Okay.
Yeah, so I think the key thing that winning organizations are going to have is they have their maturity model on, okay, this is where I want to be, but this is where we're at. And we're going to build a bridge to here.
Yeah, that's with the new book we've got coming out, Operation Science Applied. We have coined a term that's applied in design. It's called performance envelope. And so, to your point, what's my performance envelope? Am I expect demand to be 100 plus or minus 10, or is it going to be 1,000 plus or minus 500? Somebody's got to make that call in determining where you want to be. And there's different costs for different options there. So in looking at that, how do you strike a balance between, because dealing with variability, you'd like to have stability, make the same thing over and over again, but you have to strike that balance between, well, that's not what the customer wants, so we have to make what the customer wants, which introduces variability. How do you strike that balance between, I guess I'd call it stability and variability or agility?
Yeah, absolutely. I hate that. I don't know who to credit it to, but I learned that as the efficiency thoroughness trade-off principle. You can't do both at once, right? There's the faster solution and more in-depth solution, but you do have to balance what's otherwise paradoxical. And for me, in an organization, that's all goal setting, right? If you're going to look at your goals once a year and have the big, hairy, audacious, let's go for a 20% improvement, you're going to struggle because you can't build a pathway there to our previous thing. But I think the human nature people have to be able to see the target, have to see the finish line from where they're at. And I think I like setting goals that are, 1%, 4% better, and setting the timetable, whether it's, hey, we're going to go after 1% this week or 1% this month to build up to that 15 or 18% over the year. That's the best way to handle that is really set those smaller daily, weekly, monthly goals and make those achievable and more comfortable for people. It keeps them engaged and you can predict and call your shot on what's going to happen.
Yeah, so that then requires communication, right? A lot of communication. How does the communication work through the ranks in your organization? You guys having daily shop floor meetings or weekly status meetings? It sounds like you're working towards the monthly SIOP meetings. How does it work in detail out on the floor, the production floor?
Yeah, I think every organization has to have the cadence that it's right for them, and certainly, I've worked in automotive, aerospace, medical, and medical is going to be a lot slower. It takes forever. It changes because of the FDA regulations. Automotive is probably a lot faster, and so I think it scales a little bit. But those roles and responsibilities, contribute a lot to how we communicate and when we communicate. And I think that to me is the difference maker. Is those frontline leaders really embrace that their role is largely to escalate, right? There's a standard, there's a plan. This is how it's supposed to work, and all of those have to quickly come up through the system. And that next level has to quickly prioritize. But these are the important ones. We've got to go get a team of resources working on this, and all those support teams. They don't get to pick their problems, right? Those are coming from the shop floor, but they have to be great problem solvers. And, which problems get solved by the leaders that ultimately strategize and create the vision all has that linkage of what gets communicated, how it gets communicated, and also by the pace of the organization, when it gets communicated.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, that's having that. Well, for a shift leader, the daily communication plans, right? And then that just feeds up through the organization. It goes both ways. A question I always like to ask when visiting a place for the first time, I like to go, do the plant floor tour, and then you'll meet people who are out there working, and it's always insightful to ask them, how do you know if you're doing a good job? And to listen to their response. And, if the response is, well, my boss hadn't yelled at me in the last 2 weeks, so I think it's going pretty well. That tells me something. If they take me over to their gimbal board and they say, well, here are our metrics and here we did last week, and here's where we're trying to go, and these are the continuous improvement efforts that we have going on, that tells me another thing. How does that work in your organization? If I ask that question to somebody, what would they say?
Yeah, and that's, I think, a big part of the journey, or the fun part of the journey for me, because I could go into a new organization, and the companies that are maybe struggling a little bit more with culture. You ask them, how are they doing, or they say, great, can't wait to go fishing this weekend. It's going to be a good time, or I'm fine, or just good, and kind of look away, and then you start developing these processes, creating that culture of continuous improvement where people are more inspired with purpose, and they're fearless to learn, can't wait to celebrate. And you ask those teams, are you having a good day? And they say, I'm having an amazing day. Look at our results. We're going to go break, the company record this afternoon. And I can't wait to high five these, such and such individual on my way out, and, go honk my horn, because it's just that good. And there's this seamless integration between the people and the teams and the culture and the company that really just comes out when you say, how are you doing?
Right. Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, you can tell when people are engaged in their work and when they're just there, to collect a paycheck. It makes a really big difference. So along those lines, when you're looking at problems out on the floor and you're looking at production issues, and actually it's not just the floor. I mean, because you've got big organization, you have a planning group, you're dealing with the finance people, they have their own agenda. When you're looking at a problem, I mean, how do you decide, is it a person issue, a process issue, or a structural issue?
Yeah, I think there's same as what we've been talking. There's a bit of an order of operations, and we hopefully all organizations the mission vision has been set, so you can get into what was the strategy, did you plan, and did it work on paper?
Yeah, yeah.
If it worked on paper, did you resource and train, and support the plan? And then starting to break down, where did it go wrong? Was there a lack of communication? Uh, so I knew the plan, but the shop floor didn't know the plan. Why did we not talk or understand this? I think there would be a lack of adherence for any number of reasons. That could be training and coaching and so forth, or there could be just very real problems that it didn't go a plan because it wasn't part of the plan, or it wasn't known, or it wasn't understood. And really kind of breaking it into those phases. 'Cause there's a lot of organizations that are very quick to rush, and everything's a problem, right? And you have a long bucket list of action item lists that's 10 pages long. But if you didn't look at the communication issues back to the plan, or the adherence issues, you're spending all these engineering resources and continuous improvement resources trying to problem solve everything, where not every problem has to be a problem.
Right. Yeah, actually, and I cited this a number of times, but a great example, we're working with Delta, and after these guys had been through the operation science training, had the framework they were applying to their operations, the guy, and this is a maintenance tech, so this wasn't a manager, guy's working on the front line repairing jet engines, and he came back and he said, yeah, we used to think we had 30 problems because we had 30 people in our shop, and we thought we had 60 solutions because everybody had at least two opinions. But since we've understood the framework and now we've kind of narrowed it down to our plan and our scope using the operation science, we realized we only have 4 problems, and we're all focused on working on those problems. And so, to your point, what happens a lot of times is people they self-induce variability with all sorts of potential solutions, and that idea with having the plan, having people understand what the goal is, and communicating that really helps to dampen that unnecessary self-induced variability.
Yeah, I absolutely love that, and to me, it's so true. It doesn't mean absolutely we want to respect, honor the traditions of the plants, the people that come in, and everybody has the opinion, they have the experience and traditions. One, and way it was originally kind of taught to me is it's absolutely take a swing, right? That there is always going to be the dirty, hairy solution of kind of point, click, bang. I know exactly what that is, but when it doesn't work, and it's not a communication, not an adherence issue, but it's a real problem, then Sherlock Holmes is going to be way better than Dirty Harry.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good analogy. Right. Okay. All right, let's switch topics a little bit, and talk about one of the newest, hottest things going on these days, artificial intelligence. Are you seeing any effects of that in the work that you're doing there at Ford with you and your teams?
Absolutely, I think all organizations right now are definitely gearing up for the world that the AI is bringing them, and making significant investments across the board. Earlier, prior to my days here, I was actually in a lighthouse organization, which was spearheading all things Industry 4.0 and artificial intelligence. So I, definitely in that field, and I think it has its place in the world, but it definitely is important to apply it correctly. And kind of what we were talking about, like the number of solutions that people will tie to a problem, it has to be round peg, round hole. And so, artificial intelligence to me is really good at taking in massive amounts of data and sensing and having a good peripheral vision of all the things that are going on while we as managers are trying to focus. and it's really good at processing immense amounts of numerical data. I don't think it's quite there yet with, logic and processing and reasoning. But it's going to take a little while. Uh, and then ultimately, on the back end of the process, proving did you get the result that you wanted to get is still going to be a bit human. So I think if organizations look at that in terms of where am I good, where am I not, and applying artificial intelligence in those realms of activity, I think it can be a beautiful thing. I do think there's a bit of a race in the world today on just getting out there and getting all these use cases built up.
Yes. Oh, it's the Wild West. It's completely the Wild West. I mean, it's just crazy. Everybody's saying they got the latest and greatest, and all you have to do is take a course and say you're an AI consultant. So yeah, it's the Wild West.
Yeah, to me, the best applications for AI that I've seen are the ones that actually directs me as a plant manager to where is the problem that I can go put eyes on it, right? It makes that Gemba walk all that much more effective. That I know I need to go to this cell at this time in this way to observe this problem, and I can take the surprise and the frustration out of my day and just come to work and solve problems.
So that's interesting. Do you have an application where, you look at your AI assistant in the morning to see what it says about what's going on in the plant and then use that to help prioritize what you're going to do?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, that's interesting. And it's that what's been your experience with it? It works pretty well for you, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think all the systems need a little, fine tuning, and whether it's supervised learning, unsupervised learning. But I think that's the trajectory that we're on. Is I think there's this commingling where AI is going to make us better, more effective problem solvers.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So it's interesting. Yeah, I found because I'm communicating a lot, I'm writing a lot. It's great for suggestings. It's because it's always harder to compose. It's easier to edit than it is to compose, and so AI is great for taking a first stab at it, and then I might use 10% of what it says, but at least it gets me started. So I also along the lines in terms of those jobs, the a quote that I've seen it a couple of times lately. So be interesting whether it's just an anecdote or it's actually come true. But people say, "Oh yeah, AI is not going to take your job, but somebody who knows how to use AI may take your job." And I think there's something to that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think again, the data wrangling capabilities of AI are incredible. The sense making that we as humans still need to put behind it are a difference maker, right? So yeah, I've seen all the things out there. AI can publish a letter really really quick, easy, and very little work on my end. However, you got to twist my arm before you can convince me to have AI write a love letter to my wife.
Yeah. Well, that's you've probably been married for a while, so that's good. That's good. That's a good example. Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, it definitely has its uses, but you really have to be careful about it. So then AI actually, to your point, and I think you mentioned this earlier, can become that shiny new toy, right? It's like, oh, we got to get AI because everybody else got AI. Well, back when I first got started in my career, it was robots. Oh, everybody's got to get robots. I actually did my master's work in robotics and computer graphics, thinking that the whole world was going to have robots, and that maybe we'll get there now, but that was when I started like 2 years ago. So I'm not gonna give my age, but it was a long time ago, and so now AI comes along. It's sort of we've seen that with technology progression, robotics, computers. Uh, Data analytics, data science, and now AI, sort of the culmination of that. And then on the other hand, you've got, as we mentioned, you've got all these best practices or lean, theory of constraints, Six Sigma. How do you know when a best practice is actually a best practice?
Yeah, I think when it stands the test of time. I don't think best practices have to be put up on a pedestal and never get touched and get kind of enclosed the case of glass. I do think that we should be regularly challenging them as we're continuing to learn as an organization. But yeah, at the end of the day, kind of tying back to the AI and automation and robotics, it's not going to be a world where we can sit on that status quo and just say, "Hey, we found perfection and we're done." Because I think the nature of business that we're in, I sell talent, right? And that talent has to continue to change. Absolutely, money is gas in the tank. It will get us to the destination, but the journey is all about developing talent, looking at what we can do with our people, and that has to change and improve over time.
So that's interesting. Talk a little bit more about that. When you say you sell talent, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so our people, right? That pathway to mastery truly is, I guess, another was saying it. I once heard, and again, I wish I could attribute it to the right author at the moment, but a company, you break that down, is companions with a common purpose, and so flow chart that out, put in your SIPOC diagram. It then starts with people. That's the input to your processes. And what kind of job do you have to create that you want to go do something together forever with your companions the rest of your life? It has to be the one where all of us have our own stake in the outcome, the what's in it for me, and that learning to be great and awesome at what you do is the key. And all these people that
So let me jump in here and clarify. So when you're saying selling talent, you're selling the idea that people need to develop their talent to get to where they want to be. Is that what I'm hearing?
to me, if you look at value, you can go into the textbook definitions. You're transforming things to create an end product that your customer wants. But strip away the talent. All you got is machines and materials, a little bit of electricity, a building, nothing special. It might as well be an empty black box. The thing that made it special, that you as a customer or consumer would want to pay for, is the talent that we introduced to it. Right. That takes us all the way back to Middle Ages craftsmen. They had talent that not everybody else had, and that, I think, is the competitive weapon that's going to keep our economy and our world going forever. You need the talent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, for an individual in their career, I mean, nowadays, because you don't have the lifetime jobs with pensions that you had before. And so people really have to kind of manage their own career. I think that's an interesting way and a very constructive way to talk about it. You have to sell talent to your people so they'll invest in themselves, which in turn helps the company.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the win-win for everybody.
Yes, yes. All right, so let's talk about mistakes. And you don't have to be specific, but we don't want to gloss over mistakes. And mistakes are typically a good learning experience. Is there one from your career that sticks out at you that you would share?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, unfortunately, we all have them,
Sure.
and they're learning opportunities. Yeah, I think the challenge for me is kind of that teach to fish and not fish for people. I think when I started my career early as a plant manager, I loved fishing. Right, I loved solving problems and getting stuff done, and I was the answer guy. It's a fun lifestyle. You can be charismatic and talented and energy, but ultimately, when you're not there anymore, what does the culture do? Right? Because you can go fix those systems and processes, you can go improve and be innovative, but the respect for the culture that you leave behind is incredibly important. And I don't think early in my career I completely got that. And for a plant that had a phenomenal transformation, after I left, the next plant manager saw, well, we got all this extra stuff. Why are you doing this kind of culture reward thing? Why is this meeting there? And let's kind of strip it out and take this out. And culture was quick to backslide for the new management team, new sheriff in town. And unfortunately, that plant just isn't there today, right? They were doing phenomenal, but I didn't have a army of problem solvers and people that didn't know how to fish. I was the guy.
Yeah, that's that can be pretty profound. I tell you, there's few things more difficult than having to announce a plant closing. That's not something anybody really wants to do. All right, let's switch. Switch gears a little bit, and let's talk about how you got to where you are. When you were a kid, where'd you grow up? Brothers and sisters? Were you the oldest, youngest? When did you decide you wanted to be an engineer?
So very great questions. I'm the baby brother in a small family. I've got an older sister. Grew up mostly in Kentucky. Right? We moved around a little bit with my dad's job, but my dad absolutely has been my inspiration on every level. He's a manufacturing guy. Kind of move up through his technician and electrical engineer, engineering manager, and my favorite childhood memories are really kind of working on those projects with him. So I kind of always knew I was going to be in the problem solving world and engineer. For better or worse, I came out of school as an engineer, got into that problem solving world, but didn't get to choose my own problems. It was, this is what you have to go work on, and unfortunately, that very first experience was more like a copy and paste of what everybody else was doing. And I said, well, if the plant managers are the ones that get to make those decisions and set that strategy, that's what I want to go do. I want to make a difference. I want to leave my mark and kind of where we go. And ultimately, it's been a great fit for me. I love, obviously the people side and leadership side. I think that's where I add the most, and that's really been my background in history.
Okay. And so your dad worked, any influence from your mom? Was she into doing the projects, or she just let you guys go do that stuff?
My mom's been phenomenal too. I mean, she, always had the compassion and wherewithal to help me when I was struggling, kind of keep me going. My dad was a little more, I'd have a bad day. He'd always say, "Oh, well, Brian, what's your plan?" Right. And try to gauge what's next. And my mom kind of kept it balanced and kind of kept me going and motivated. And is always a strong believer and helped kind of build me up to tackle the hard challenges and persevere.
Well, that's interesting because, you said obviously your dad got you introduced in, the nuts and bolts and solving problems. But when you deal with people, you have to have that compassion. I mean, you can't treat them like they're just machines themselves. It sounds like she had a pretty good influence too that's translated into your management style.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I am definitely the product of my parents all day long.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, last question. If you could offer one piece of advice to younger professionals aspiring to leadership and operations, what would that be?
Yeah, I think my theme all along here is leave your mark, right? Do what you want to be passionate about, and go all in. If you can't, choose something else, because we're at a spot where we get to build our careers. We get to set our value, and really build a life, build a career that you're going to be passionate and all in.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good advice. I mean, you do, so many people take jobs and they stay in jobs because they feel like they have to and they're trapped, and you definitely want to avoid that. So good advice. Well, listen, Brian, it's been wonderful having this conversation with you. A lot of great insight. I always learn so much from these conversations, and this has been no exception. So really appreciate you being on the podcast and look forward to talking in the future.
Absolutely. It's been great. Thanks, Ed.
All right. Thanks, Brian. See you.
The Operation Science podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes action, research, and collective wisdom. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. Join the Operation Science Institute at opscience.org. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions that are making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Thanks for listening, and see you on the next episode. The views expressed by our guests are their own and do not represent their company's views unless specifically stated as such.